Hey, I'm Pep, and this is a Pep Talk. Now today, we're going to talk about seating. That sounds exciting. Now look, I think I'm going to a weird place here, and you probably think, why do I care about seating? What do you even mean? Well, I mean a couple different things. Let's start. Now I'm sure you might have noticed, but the other angle was kind of looking down at me. That's because I was sitting in a lower seat. Now, I'm in a higher seat. Okay, I'm boring myself already. But the height of seating is important. Some people like to be lower, especially taller people, and some people like to be higher up, especially shorter people. In both those cases, it usually makes it easier for you to see everything around the table. But I'm sure at least two of you out there are saying, okay, so I just pick the seat I want. Well, sure, you can do that, but in my opinion, that's not the natural psychological way that people would approach this situation. More likely than not, you're going to come to a table that already has chairs, and you're going to sit there and play the game. If you live here, or it's somewhere you're very comfortable being, you might go and grab a particular chair you enjoy, switch it out with the one that's in the seat you want. But that leads to the question, why was that the seat you wanted? A lot of times people set a game up ahead of time, or as they're setting it up, they'll plop different player boards down on the table. Now, this seat has the green player board. So if I were someone who wanted to play green, what am I going to do? Sit at the other side of the table and then switch this board over there? No, I'm going to sit at the green board. That's what makes sense. Now, let's say this is the chair that's here. Am I going to sit at the chair that's already here? Or switch chairs? Well, that depends, but in my opinion, you're most likely to end up with this chair. Unless the chair really sucks, then you might switch it out. Another possible factor in a situation like this is lighting. You might notice the light behind me. Well, you can only really see the pole of it, but the point is I've purposely not changed the lighting each time I've been moving. If you've even noticed that, which you should have probably. But I'm doing that because lighting will change given on where you're sitting, unless the light is literally directly above the table, in which case, great. But if it's not, some people might have different lighting situations than others. And basically what that boils down to is if you have trouble seeing, then perhaps you'll want to sit in a position where the lighting isn't bad for you. Maybe if you're new to the game, you know you're going to need to read a lot of information. Then yes, you're going to want to be the one sitting in a position of optimal lighting. I'm not doing that takeover. Now I'm going to flip this whole conversation on its head because while it's important that everybody sits in a relative position that's comfortable for them, whether you're getting into a chair that makes you comfortable, whether you're getting into a lighting position or reading position that makes you comfortable, the board generally has to be one way or the other. So you're either going to be reading upside down or not. In my experience, the number of people who can read upside down, sideways, or straight on well are roughly about even. I can read any direction fine. My weakest is definitely reading side on. But I know people who just absolutely cannot read upside down. If they could, they would literally turn the board around to look at it every time it was their turn. So it's quite likely that you could seat people specifically to make sure that those restrictions are satisfied. And maybe that's what you already do. Likely if you have a game group that's very consistent, you probably all just kind of sit wherever you want to sit and apply all these things automatically, maybe even without even thinking about it. And here's where I'm about to tell you that everything you've been doing is wrong. Now, of course, wrong is subjective in this case. Speaking of wrong, though, this is an example of a chair that is way too low. However, extremely comfortable. So at the end of a table, not good, I can't see anything. But if it were in the middle of the table, close to the main board, I'd probably be fine. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. What are you doing wrong, you ask? It's quite simple. You're likely just sitting in either A, some random order that's probably not random, or B, in the exact same position every game you play. And this is wrong for one very specific reason. Turn order. Most games have it, most of them are in clockwise order. And I'm sure you probably see where I'm going with this already. Let's say person A, B, C, and D love to play games together. They play games all the time. Now, if every time they play, they sit in order A, B, C, D, there's a very distinct situation that occurs. Player B will always go after player A. Player C will always go after player B. Of course, who's going first can change and rotate based on the games, but that doesn't change who you are beside and who is going to be affecting you. You're either going to go first or you're going to go after the person to your right. Now that seems really obvious, but why does it matter? It matters because in a lot of games, there are only so many actions or situations or processes that can take place. If somebody goes before you, they are going to be taking one of those actions / possibilities. Now, of course, there's likely a lot of things to go around, and you might have that same advantage over the person to your left. But the problem is, different people quite often tend to have, let's say, the same strategy or similar strategies. So if you go to sit down and play a new game with somebody, if the person to your right is the same person that's always to your right, they're likely to apply a similar or the exact same strategy. They're likely going to take the same resources, block the same spaces, make the same actions that will impact your turn. Now, as I said, it's possible that your group just sits randomly. If I were to say, oh, what's the assigned seating? You would just say, oh, everyone just, sits wherever they want. But randomness is not truly random if people are making those decisions. Likely, there's someone who likes to sit at the head of the table, or someone who likes to sit beside a friend of theirs, or someone who likes to sit directly across from someone else so they can play footsies with each other. Whatever the reason is, there's likely to be a lot of these little situations that will occur. And as I mentioned before, if you preset up your table, having particular chairs set up in particular areas, having different colors laid out, in a lot of ways you're mentally dictating to a lot of people what areas they need to sit in. Maybe they decide they want to sit in the comfier chair. Maybe they decide they want to sit in front of the color that they enjoy. All that's doing is making it so that the person who set up the game night is the one who's telegraphing a lot of these decisions. And I don't want to make it sound like these are all some insidious plots that are being crafted by either the leader of the game night or the players around the table to make sure that they have an advantage over their friends. No, a lot of times it is what someone might see as just random chance. But it could be affecting a lot of people's gameplay. As a side note, you might notice I haven't switched camera angles. That's because this chair is really comfy, so I'm probably going to be here a while. But listen, I'm not just going to make this video to complain about these things and point them out. It's a pep talk. I'm here to give you some options and give you some ways that you can make this different, that you can break these patterns and have people that aren't always sitting beside certain people. Heck, it's likely you've had people complain before, oh, I always sit beside you and you mess up my turns, or, oh, why do I always go after you? These things happen. Well, here's 10 ways that you can avoid that. I'm actually just kidding. I don't know how many ways I'm going to say because this isn't scripted. Now, the way to avoid what I was talking about with presetting everything up and kind of mentally giving people these suggestions of where to sit, easiest solution to that is when you have the player colors out, don't put them in front of spaces. Kind of set them in the middle of the table so people can pick and choose them. The other thing, and I know this is going to sound strange and counterintuitive, don't put chairs around the table. Have the chairs sitting around the room, almost like, you're picking which chair you want and then bringing it to the table. That gives people zero indication of where they should be sitting or what color / faction or whatever they should be taking. Might take an extra 30 seconds for people to pull their chairs up and pull one of the boards to them, but I think it probably will affect your games in a positive way overall, even if you don't notice it first. Now, of course, that doesn't solve the problem of, oh, but what about friends who like to sit together, or people who always just naturally end up next to each other, or lovers? Well, I've had this little deck of cards in front of me the entire time, and there's a lot of other solutions you can find. You can find some apps, I believe, that are player randomizers as well as first turn pickers, but I often will use these as a first turn picker. Chooser. I think chooser is a better word than picker. But these are also great for picking who's going to go in what order. And this deck of cards came from Between Two Cities, I'm pretty sure. Either way, they have a lot of creative suggestions on how to determine seating order. For example, alphabetical by last book read. So everyone thinks of the last book they read and decides on the seating order. Exactly where people sit doesn't matter, so you could kind of go with whatever person sits in their preferred spot first, everyone else just muddles their way around. That could work. Now, one problem with something like this is while it will randomize the people, it will kind of negate all the other stuff I've talked about. You know, sitting somewhere that has good lighting for you, sitting somewhere that has a good seat height for you, sitting either up or downwind from reading the board, because some people read via smell. So in the end, I think it's really up to you. What makes your group most comfortable? Maybe it's a mix of the two. You bounce between making sure everyone's in the proper seats for themselves, making sure people feel like they have the choice, but then every once in a while, mixing it up and throwing that kind of thing at people just to make sure that, you know, at least one game has a truly random turn order. Of course, some games don't matter for the turn order. Maybe turn order is based on something completely different, not just a single rotation around the table. In which case, yeah, make sure everyone's sitting in whatever chair is most comfortable for them, whatever position's most comfortable. You know, just be comfy. Because a comfy gamer is 12% happier. Probably. This chair's not comfy. I'm legitimately concerned that it's going to collapse underneath me. It's one of those chairs that gets switched out on game nights. Anyway, that's been my pep talk. This one was a little weird, but leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. If you have any of your own suggestions on different ways that you can apply seating or just different table configurations in general. Heck, this could have got into a rectangular table versus round table discussion. I also have a couch pulled up to my game table, which gives people the option of, you know, a little bit of a comfier seating during a game. Of course, then, it means multiple people kind of occupying the same seat. So, yeah, it raises a couple different solutions and issues at the same time. Anyway, thanks for sitting down for a bit and watching this video. Yeah, I can't stand my puns either.